They say the wilderness whispers, all those leaves rustling, the wind weaving through the pines, a creek bubbling over stones. Most folks hear that and think peaceful. They think quiet. But out here, there's a deeper quiet. A silence so profound it isn't just the absence of sound, it's a presence. And that kind of silence, that's when you need to start listening, really listening. My name's Elijah Stone. I've been a park ranger in these parts for over 27 years. Seen a lot, roaring fires that tore through the trees like dragons breathing fire, flash floods that swallowed roads whole, and bears that'd stare you down, making you question your place on the food chain. But none of it ever felt like what I encountered that night. It was late autumn. Most of the leaves were down, and the chill had settled deep into the bones. You could taste winter in the air, sharp and clean. I was out on a routine patrol, checking the far perimeter of the park, the kind of deep woods where you don't see another human soul for days, sometimes weeks. Most times that solitude is good for the spirit, but not that night. My patrol truck, a beat-up old Ford pickup, sat 2 miles back at the trailhead. I'd gone on foot, deeper into the forest, checking for downed trees, illegal traps, and whatever else might threaten the balance of this wilderness. Everything seemed as it should be. The usual nighttime symphony played out. Crickets chirping, owls calling, wind stirring branches, until it wasn't. It started with the animals. First, the crickets fell silent, then the owls. Even the rustling of mice in the underbrush seemed to hold its breath. It wasn't sudden, more like the world itself was quietly swallowing every sound, like something was pulling the noise out of the air, like a vacuum sucking away the life of the forest.
You learn to read the woods, and when the woods fall silent like that, not a chirp, not a rustle, not even the hum of insects, you know something big is coming, or worse, it's already here. I stopped, exhaling a cloud of mist into the cold night air, eyes narrowing into the darkness beyond the beam of my flashlight. Come on, little ones, what's got you so spooked? That's when I caught the scent. Something wrong. Not animal musk, not the sharp tang of decay. It was like cold, damp earth, but with an impossible sweetness layered underneath it. Like fresh-turned soil mixed with a flower long dead, rotting but strangely fragrant. It hung in the air, thick and cloying. Then I saw it. Or rather, I saw the absence of it. Right there, in a small clearing I knew like the back of my hand, where moonlight usually spilled clear and bright, there was nothing. No moonlight. Just a patch of absolute black. Like a hole in the night, a tear in the fabric of the world. My ranger instinct screamed at me to turn back. Go. Get out of there. But there was something else. A pull. A cold, dreadful curiosity that felt like it wasn't entirely mine, like an unseen hand tugging me forward.
The air grew heavier. That strange, earthy sweetness thickened, almost suffocating. And the cold, it wasn't just the autumn chill anymore. It was a cold that dug into your bones, like it was leaching warmth from the ground, from the air, from my very being. Then came the sound. It wasn't a sound you'd recognize, not human, not animal. It was elemental, a low, deep thrum, like the heartbeat of the earth itself, but distorted, warped, wrong. And I saw it then, not clearly, never clearly. It was like trying to look at something that actively repelled light, something that defied perception. But I saw enough. A silhouette, impossibly stretched, too tall, too thin. It stood there, motionless, not breathing, just existing, like a vertical scar ripped across reality. And the eyes, no,
not eyes. Pinpricks of something else, not light, not fire, but empty. Like looking into an endless void. They weren't looking at me. They were looking through me. Or maybe they weren't looking at all, just perceiving, observing. It didn't threaten, it didn't move, it didn't make a noise. It just stood. And the silence around it was absolute, total, void. As if it had drained every sound, every ounce of warmth, every particle of life from the forest, leaving only a bubble of pure nothingness.
It felt like an eternity. Just me, the biting cold, that sickening sweet smell, and that form. Silent. Waiting. For what? I didn't know. And deep down, I knew I didn't want to find out. Then, it was gone. Just like that. The inky blackness dissolved, replaced by the weak moonlight I had expected. The trees were just trees again. The clearing, just a clearing. The forest was empty. I don't remember much about the walk back to my truck. It was a blur. Just the sound of my own ragged breathing, the frantic pounding of my heart, and the silence. The forest stayed silent. For hours, not a chirp, not a rustle, not a whisper. Like everything was holding its breath, waiting for the echoes of that thing to fade. I made it back to the ranger station, got a fire going, sat right here by the hearth. The rest of the night, I just sat and listened for the sounds to return. Eventually, they did. The crickets, the owls, the wind, they all came back. But it wasn't the same. It never has been.
I never saw that thing again, whatever it was. I've walked that section of woods 1,000 times since. Daylight, starlight, thick fog, no trace, no sign. It's like it was never there, like a nightmare you can't quite shake. But I know it was there, and I know this. The woods, they're alive, more alive than we can ever understand. And some of their inhabitants, they aren't biological, not like us. They're older, different, and they don't need to hurt you to leave a mark. It changes you, knowing that, knowing there are things out there moving in the shadows that can just be. And their silence can scream louder than any sound you've ever heard. It's the sound of everything unknowable, everything wrong with the natural order, a reality far greater and far more terrifying than we can ever imagine. So, next time you're out in the deep woods, and the wind dies down, and the birds stop singing, and you feel that cold, heavy silence press in around you, don't just think it's peaceful. Don't think it's quiet. Listen closer. Because that might just be the moment something else is listening back. And if you're lucky, or unlucky, you might just hear the deepest silence of them all.
They say the forest never forgets. The old trees hold memories. The ground keeps secrets. Out here, the past doesn't just fade away, it lingers. Shadows cling to the roots, and sometimes in the dead of night, the lost voices slip through the cracks of time. The station's been abandoned for decades, torn down in parts, boarded up, swallowed by creeping vines and moss. But the stories, Oh, the stories still haunt this place. Strange lights flickering in the windows after dark, whispering voices carried by the wind, shadows that move when no one's watching. They say a fire tore through the station long ago, trapping the previous ranger inside. His spirit never left, bound to the hollow ground, restless, angry. Locals warned me to stay clear, but curiosity is a dangerous thing, especially for someone like me, used to chasing down truths in the wild.
It was early October, when the days grow short and the chill creeps in early. I was dispatched to check on the perimeter near the old station, to make sure no one had trespassed or left any hazards behind. Alone, with only the moon and my flashlight, I made my way down the overgrown trail. The forest felt different the moment I stepped past the last signpost. The air grew heavier, as if I'd walked underwater. The usual symphony of night sounds was muted, just a faint rustle of leaves, and somewhere far off, the call of a lone owl. I felt eyes on me, though when I spun around, the trees held only their usual dark silhouettes. By the time I reached the station, the moon was a thin crescent, barely lighting the clearing. The building stood like a skeleton, blackened beams jutting up from the ground. The air smelled of smoke and damp earth. I shone my flashlight inside the broken doorway. The floor was littered with debris, shards of glass, rusted tools, charred wood. But something else caught my eye. On the far wall, etched into the soot-blackened wood, was a crude symbol, a circle enclosing a spiral, scratched deep enough to be seen even in the dim light. I crouched closer, fingers tracing the grooves. A sudden chill swept through the room, making my breath fog up in the cold air. Then, the whispering started. Soft at first, like the rustling of leaves, but unmistakable. Voices, words in a language I didn't recognize, flowing in and out like the wind itself was speaking to me. I froze, tried to tell myself it was the wind playing tricks, but the whispers grew louder, weaving into a chorus of sorrow and rage. I could feel it pulling at me, threading through the cold, reaching deep inside. Suddenly, the ground beneath me trembled. A faint glow began to pulse from the floorboards, pale blue light seeping through cracks. My flashlight flickered and died. Darkness swallowed me whole. When my eyes adjusted, I saw her, a figure standing just beyond the doorway, pale, translucent, her hair like drifting smoke. She looked at me with eyes full of despair, and her mouth opened in a silent scream. My heart slammed against my ribs. I wanted to run, but my feet felt rooted to the spot. The air around her shimmered, warping like heat waves on a summer road. She raised a hand, beckoning me forward. Her voice, when it came, was a soft, mournful sigh that echoed in my mind. Help me. I swallowed hard, stepping closer despite every warning. The whispers turned into pleading voices, circling around me, urging me to listen. Her story unfolded in flashes, the fire, the betrayal, the loneliness. She was the ranger who'd perished here, trapped by flames and forgotten by time. Her spirit was bound to this place by sorrow and rage, unable to rest. I pulled out my radio, but it crackled uselessly. My phone showed no signal. It was just me and her, and the forest holding its breath. She reached out, fingers brushing my cheek with a cold like ice. I felt the flood of memories not my own, the panic, the heat, the final moments of her life. A tear of ash fell from her eye and dissolved into the floor. Suddenly, the glow burst brighter. the ground cracked open, revealing a cavern beneath, glowing roots twisting like veins, pulsing with the same eerie blue light. The whispers became a roar, the walls trembling. I had to get out, but my legs wouldn't move. Then, as if an answer, the figure faded, dissolving into a flurry of leaves that swirled and scattered in the wind. The glow dimmed, the whispers receded to silence. I scrambled back, heart racing, and tore down the trail toward my truck. The forest around me seemed to exhale, the normal sounds returning with a vengeance. Insects, distant wolves, the rustling trees. But something had changed. I could feel it. The weight of what I had seen, the presence left behind. A scar in the fabric of the woods. Back at the station, safe for now, I sat by the fire, thinking about the ranger who never left and the forest that never forgets. Sometimes the past isn't done with us. Sometimes the dead are just waiting for someone to listen. And sometimes, if you're lucky or unlucky, you get a chance to help them find peace. They say the wilderness is unpredictable. That's what we tell ourselves to feel safe. But the truth is, the woods remember everything. Every footprint, every whisper, every broken promise. And sometimes, the woods decide to remind you. It started as a routine patrol. Late summer, the forest thick with humidity and the hum of insects. I was assigned to the Hollow sector, a dense stretch of ancient trees known for its eerie quiet and strange local legends. The Hollow was a place kids dared each other to enter, but the stories were dismissed as campfire tales. Nothing official. Nothing I believed. Until that night. I began at sunset, driving the beaten dirt roads in my old Ford. The fading light bled through the leaves, casting long shadows that danced as the wind shifted. As I entered the Hollow, the air changed. It thickened, like the forest was holding its breath. The usual bird songs vanished, replaced by a silence so heavy it pressed into my ears. I parked near the old ranger cabin, a relic from decades ago, long abandoned but still standing. As I stepped out, the ground beneath my boots felt unnaturally cold, despite the summer heat. I brushed it off and started my foot patrol along the narrow trail, eyes sharp for anything out of place. The first odd thing was the absence of animals. No squirrels chattered, no insects buzzed, no frogs croaked. The forest felt dead. But more than dead, it felt wrong. I noticed faint marks in the dirt, strange footprints, too large for any deer or bear. They were human-like, but elongated, with toes spread wide, like the impression of something that shouldn't exist. The prints led off the trail and disappeared near an old well I'd seen, but never investigated. Curiosity edged me forward. As I approached the well, a chill ran down my spine. The air smelled stale, like rotting leaves and sulfur. The stones around the well were cracked, moss-covered, and something unnatural radiated from it. I shone my flashlight down the well. Darkness swallowed the beam, but I thought I saw movement. A pair of eyes reflecting back. Cold, glowing. Not animal, not human. I blinked, and the eyes vanished. I stepped back, heart hammering. Suddenly, my radio crackled to life, static, and a voice whispering my name. Elijah, it breathed. No one was on the other end. The signal was dead. I shook my head, telling myself it was my mind playing tricks. I decided to call it a night and head back. As I turned, the forest seemed to close in. The trees groaned softly, a low sound like a lament or a warning. I moved faster, but the silence persisted. Then, the lights, flickering, darting through the trees. Shadows too quick to be animals. They blinked in and out, faint orbs of pale blue, floating just beyond my vision. I reached the truck and slammed the door, locking it. The radio whispered again, "Come back." The engine wouldn't start. Nothing. Just silence. The temperature plummeted. Frost formed on the windows. I reached for my flashlight, and it sputtered out. Darkness engulfed me. Then I saw it, a tall figure standing in the clearing, its shape thin and distorted, limbs impossibly long, its head tilted unnaturally, eyes glowing with icy fire. It didn't move, but I felt it watching me, judging me. Frozen in terror, I fumbled for the door handle. The figure vanished. The radio fell silent. The truck started with a roar, and I didn't look back as I sped away. But the hollow woods never let go. The next day, reports came in of hikers hearing whispers, of strange lights seen at dusk. I checked the well again. The footprints were gone, but strange symbols were etched into the stones, runes that pulsed faintly under the sunlight. At night, I dreamt of those eyes, the cold breath on my neck, and the figure that watched but never moved. Determined to understand, I returned to the hollow woods the following night, this time on foot, carrying extra equipment, a camera, a voice recorder, and an old journal I'd found in the ranger cabin years ago. It belonged to a ranger who vanished without a trace decades ago. The journal spoke of the Watchers, strange occurrences, and an ancient presence tied to the land. As I crossed the threshold, a thick fog rolled in, swirling around the tree trunks like living smoke. The silence was suffocating. I switched on the recorder, whispering into it to test the mic. Nothing but static answered back. Then, the forest shifted. The fog parted, revealing dozens of glowing eyes watching from the shadows. They blinked in unison, and a cold wave of fear surged through me. I whispered, "Who's there?" No response, only the low hum that vibrated through the ground. I felt the air pulse, charged with an unseen energy. Then the whispers started. At first, I thought it was the wind, but the words grew clearer. Ancient chants, calling out in a language I couldn't understand, yet somehow felt in my bones. I recorded everything, heart pounding as the fog thickened. Suddenly, shapes began to emerge. Figures, cloaked in shadow, moving silently between the trees. Their forms were humanoid, but blurred at the edges, as if they were slipping between dimensions. One approached, taller than the rest, draped in tattered robes that seemed woven from night itself. Its eyes were endless voids, sucking in the faint moonlight. It reached out, and I felt a cold numbness spread through my body. I tried to run, but my legs felt rooted. The voice recorder captured a scream, mine or something else's, I wasn't sure. When I finally broke free and stumbled back to the cabin, the fog lifted. The night sounds slowly returned. My equipment was ruined, the camera lens cracked, the recorder dead. I spent the next days haunted by flashes of shadow figures and that chilling numbness. Some nights, I swear, I hear the chants in the wind, calling me back to the hollow. I don't know what they are. Spirits?
Creatures from some other place? Guardians of something buried deep beneath the forest floor. All I know is the hollow woods keep their secrets well, and sometimes they reach out to remind you they're watching. If you ever find yourself near the hollow, listen closely to the silence, because in the quiet, something waits, and it's never alone.
They say every forest has its ghosts. Not the kind you see, no glowing orbs or wandering spirits, but the kind you feel. A chill that creeps under your skin, shadows that flicker in the corner of your eye, and whispers carried by the wind that don't belong. I'm Elijah Stone, park ranger in these woods for nearly 3 decades, and I know better than most what those woods can hide. It was early fall, that thin line between summer's last breath and the cold snap of approaching winter. The pines were thick, dark green needles rustling softly with every gust. I was called to investigate reports of strange noises near Cedar Hollow, a patch of forest known for old logging trails and a small, forgotten cemetery from the 1800s. The locals rarely spoke of the hollow, and when they did, their voices dropped to whispers. Most avoided it altogether. The first thing I noticed as I approached was the silence. Not the peaceful kind, but a silence that felt deliberate. The birds were gone, no insects buzzed, and even the usual distant hum of the wind seemed muffled, like the forest itself was holding its breath, waiting. I parked my truck beside an overgrown path leading into the hollow. The sun was dipping low, casting long shadows through the trees. I grabbed my flashlight, radio, and notepad and stepped into the woods. The air was heavy, thick with the scent of pine and something else, a faint metallic tang, like rusted iron. I followed the trail, fallen leaves crunching underfoot. The woods seemed normal at first. Old trees, thick underbrush, a small creek babbling somewhere nearby. But then the path opened into a clearing where the ground dropped away sharply into a shallow ravine. At the bottom lay the forgotten cemetery. Weathered tombstones leaned crookedly, names and dates worn away by time. As I stepped closer, a sudden cold breeze swept through the clearing, raising goosebumps on my arms despite my jacket. My breath came out in soft puffs. I caught movement out of the corner of my eye, shadows flitting between trees, too quick to identify. I spun, flashlight swinging wildly, but found nothing. I set down my pack and started recording the area. My radio crackled faintly, a burst of static, then silence. It was odd. My comms should be clear here. I checked the device. Batteries full. Suddenly, a whispering sound drifted through the air. Soft, unintelligible voices, like a group speaking just out of earshot. I froze. The whispers grew louder, overlapping syllables in a language I didn't know. "Hello?" I called, my voice cracking. The whispers stopped. Silence returned, but it was the kind of silence that presses against your ears. I felt eyes on me, not one, but many, hidden in the shadows. I decided to move away from the cemetery, back to the trail, but the forest had changed. Trees that were there moments ago were missing, replaced by thick, thorny brambles that tore at my sleeves. The path was gone, swallowed by creeping darkness and unfamiliar undergrowth. Panic bubbled inside me, but I forced calm. I was a ranger, trained for the unexpected. I switched on my GPS. It blinked. Dead. No signal, no satellite, no map, just static. I remembered the old journal from the ranger station,
the one written by my predecessor who'd vanished here decades ago. I'd read it once, a collection of strange reports and sketches. The journal spoke of the Watchers, entities tied to the hollow that preyed on lost souls, but I never believed it, until now.
A rustling behind me. I whipped around, flashlight slicing through thick shadows. Nothing but the trees. Then came the laughter. Low, chilling, and wrong. Not human. The sound bounced through the hollow, echoing off tree trunks like a chorus of madness. I turned and ran, branches scraping my face and arms. The forest seemed to twist and warp, the shadows lengthening like claws reaching for me. The whispers returned, closer now, chanting in that haunting, ancient tongue. I stumbled into a clearing and gasped as a figure emerged, tall, impossibly thin, draped in tattered robes that blended with the night. Its face was hidden beneath a deep hood, but I felt its gaze like a blade. It raised a pale, bony hand, pointing at me. I couldn't move. My legs locked. My mind screamed to run, but I was rooted in place. The figure spoke, voice like wind through dry leaves. "You should not be here." A cold hand brushed my shoulder, not cold like ice, but like the absence of warmth itself, a void. I shivered violently. Suddenly the shadows erupted. Figures poured from the trees, faceless shapes that glided without sound. The air grew thick, suffocating. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. Then the ground beneath me cracked open, a fissure spreading wide. I fell into darkness, tumbling endlessly. When I landed, I was alone in the deepest part of the hollow. The silence was absolute. My flashlight flickered weakly before dying. I was swallowed by blackness. When I came to, dawn was breaking. The forest was silent, but normal again. Birds chirping, a gentle breeze stirring the pines. I lay at the edge of the hollow, dirt in my hair, bruised and scraped, but alive. I staggered back to my truck, my radio working again. No trace of the creatures, the figures, the whispers. But the journal was in my pack, open to a new page I hadn't written, with words in that strange language scrawled hastily. The hollow watches, it waits, the lost become the found. I still patrol these woods, but I never enter the hollow after dark. Sometimes, late at night, I swear I hear those whispers carried by the wind. And I know the Watchers are still there, patient, silent, waiting for the next soul to wander into their grasp. If you ever find yourself near Cedar Hollow and hear the faintest whisper beneath the pines, don't follow it. Because some voices aren't meant to be heard, and some woods don't want to let you go.